and welcome back. This time I'm doing a fun video because I actually feel a little bit under the weather. So this time we're just going to have fun and we're going to run you through the startup procedures of a Stuart tank. Hello and welcome to the purchase of your new Stuart tank. For all the details of further things, turn to tape 2. But for now, let's show you through the startup procedures of your new Stuart tank. Alrighty chaps, I thought it was a bit of a fun intro. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I don't really feel like welding and grinding and getting covered in sparks. So today I'm just going to mess around with the tank, and I'm going to run you through starting it, because you see in those war movies, they just jump into them and they just bugger off in 2 seconds. That is not possible. Not possible, unless you're willing to risk blowing up the motor. Anyway, I suppose nothing like being shot at to really motivate you into get moving quick. So, first off, you can't just jump into it and bugger off like you think you can. Also, in war movies, they never really get across the point of how immensely loud these things are. You'd hear a tank coming a long way away. Plenty of time to get the hell out of Dodge. So first things I do is I just put the battery on charge for a little while, because, well, every little bit of juice is going to help. Also, complete side topic from my last video, I finished these. Looking lovely. These are made out of battery clamps. If you ever recognise these things, that's a battery clamp. So obviously I cut it and trimmed it down a little bit, but, you know, bit of heat with the oxy, perfect. Anyway, side topic. So, first thing you're going to want to do is put a lot of fuel in it. And by a lot, I mean a lot. So we go around here. I got my safety step. I got my jerry cans. I have another jerry can because I went and got... We're only going to put 20 litres into it, which should be enough for this video. See, I still have got to put this piece in, but I wasn't going to do this until I got this piece out and a new one in. But, yeah, there's a lot of details on the top I haven't finished. But, probably shouldn't use my hand as a hammer, but this is a later fuel cap for those playing at home. This is out of an M3... Well, it's not actually wrong for this tank. It's actually a fuel cap for the tanks that have the external fuel tanks that mount up here. So it's got a nozzle that goes into there. But if you didn't have the external ones, you just got a cap that looks the same, but it's just got a flat top. And I've also only got one because parts are hard to get. Aha! So there's bugger all in there, but we're going to check the dipstick. And by dipstick, I need to find it first. Bear with me. Aha! Here we go. 100 litre, 75 litres, 50 litres, 25 litres. It's not 100% accurate, but it gives you a bit of an idea on just how much fuel or gasoline is in the thing. In you go. It'd be handy if I had an extra hand. So there isn't much in there. Good thing I decided to put some fuel in. Otherwise this would be running for about 10 seconds. But yes, how handy is that? It's a broomstick. Broomstick handle. Obviously worked out that 100 litres and... So I'm just going to put some fuel in. It's about as exciting as being hit in the face with a brick, so I'll see you after I put some fuel in. So I've just put 25 litres in, and yes, it's got... Well, not 25, I put 20 litres in, and because there was a little bit in it, it's come to the 25 mark, so brilliant. That is more than enough. So realistically, you're going to want to do a few little, you know, visual checks. Ideally, I'm going to want to take these little covers off the air intakes if I want it to run. I have them on so that, I don't know, all that dirt doesn't go into the intake of the engine. When I have finished the intake system, it won't have that issue because there's another piece that'll go across there, join and go into an air filter that's inside that thing. So for now, that'll be a good temporary setup. Come here. Come here. There we go. Hello. Yeah, they rest in there quite nicely. Right, and you probably just want to do a little visual check. You want to check your oil, make sure it's got some. Now I don't run this to the full capacity because I haven't got all the oil coolers and stuff set up, so it doesn't need, at the moment it doesn't need all of its 22 litres, but it's on the end of that and it's still quite clean looking. Plenty of oil in there. Realistically I could use another 5, but gets plenty of good oil pressure. The reason it's 22 litres is because there's an oil cooler just there, and it's got to obviously fill that up and all that jazz. Alternator belt's good, magnetos look clean, starter motor's good. I'll wind that over in a second. Engine bay's covered in crap, yep, good. That's my fuel pump down there. Now, starting this will be a little bit different. There'll be an extra step because I have a fuel pump, whereas the original one has a mechanical fuel pump, which means you wouldn't have to worry about turning the fuel pump on. But the upside being is I can turn my fuel pump off, whereas if this was running with the mechanical one, it would just keep pumping fuel while the engine was spinning. So I can shut my fuel off and have it not continue even if the engine was spinning. So there's a bonus to having an electric fuel pump. That's one of the few modern alternator and a modern fuel pump setup. Just, it's a safety thing, and all of the fuel lines are now Teflon coated, braided, so it's probably better than it was. So there's that. And you want to do just a visual check of the tracks and things like that, and one of the things you got to do is make sure all your track wedges are tight, and considering this has done virtually nothing since they've been on, they're probably still all tight. Just check for anything wear and tear. Obviously this is going to have a lot of wear and tear. Make sure nothing's loose, nothing's going to fall off. Everything's looking good, these are all good. The battery is probably quite nicely charged. So now the next thing is to get my, I don't have an original crank handle, but I made one. Now one of the back doors of this tank, the left rear door, actually has a hole about there, so you can stick the crank handle through it, so you don't have to open the back doors of the tank. Steady. In you go. There we go. And I'm going to put a pair of vice grips over here to hold it up, because in the back of the tank there's actually another hole for this to go through, where it doesn't do that. It sort of keeps it quite level. So as you're winding it gets tighter, because obviously you're hitting compression. So there's that. One other thing before you do that is you're going to want to make sure the magneto switch is in the off position, which it is. See? Because these have a sort of, well, if you know how magnetos work, I don't need to explain it, but a magneto doesn't, it's like a coil and a distributor, everything all in one. Once it's going, it generates its own spark. It doesn't need a battery. All you need a battery for on this engine is to start it. Literally put the starter motor into go mode, and once it's going, you don't need a battery ever again. Because the magnetos just make their own sparks, so they don't need 12 volts. But clearly you need a battery to run the lights and all this other jazz, and my fuel pump, so But one of these radial engines though, magnetos are fantastic. I can't actually understand why, I guess I can understand why they're not used anymore, but they're awesome. Don't get scared by them, they're not that scary, and all you got to do to turn them off is earth them out. That's what these wires are. It's just one wire, it comes out, goes to a switch, and that switch goes straight to earth. You flick it, cuts the power, earths them out, and they're not making any more spark. And that's currently, when the mag switch is in the off position, they're earthed out, so they can't make a spark. You flick that to the on position, and it basically disconnects the earth, and that will just work. So when I had the spark plugs out, and it was on the test stand, and I could spin it over by hand, I can spin it over enough to make it spark, so it doesn't have to go obnoxiously fast to create a spark. I don't think you could hand crank it into running, but I mean, anything's possible. I suppose you could. You'd have to crank it and very fast and get very lucky. But anyway, that's that. I'm going to hook up that and then crank it over. I believe it's 45 revolutions. I tend to do a few more. You need to get 2 full revolutions of the engine. Some engines are more, some are less, but I tend to go until I feel comfortable and totally worn out. But basically you need to make sure there's no oil in those bottom 2 cylinders. Well, actually it could be anything below halfway. The top cylinder's not really an issue because all the oil drains down. And I try to run this thing at least once a month, and I think that time is now. Quick, the Germans are coming. And people wonder why I don't show off the interior that much, because it's not that exciting. I don't have much of it, and it's fairly empty. I still haven't finished it. Obviously I need to continue painting the tail shafts there. I've got a little cover on it, but actually a lot of the driveline of this particular tank is exactly as it should be. There's nothing that's not original or copied from an original, the way it's set up. So on the real tank there would actually be a isolator there, so that's where mine is. And you know, if somebody park it for a show or something, I take the key and you won't be starting unless you've got another one of those. But yeah, and a little light tells me that it's powered up. So there's a lot of gizmos and stuff that's inside that tunnel. Hardy Spicer, it's about the only mob we make tail shafts anymore. Ow, just hit my back, which you do. That light tells me everything's live. Yeah, so I'm working out whether or not I start the video, start running the engine from in here, or running it from outside where it's more exciting. I don't know, but it could be fun to do both. I guess we'll do it in here. You've seen enough videos of it starting from the outside. It's just going to be a bit interesting. So let me get into the driving position and we'll get it started. It's even Fat Guy approved. I mean, it's not actually too exciting. Obviously there's me wiring for the headlights. It's just sitting down there. It's not in the way. But down there, that's your siren. Obviously it's not hooked up. Clutch. Accelerator. Left brake. Right brake. Hand brake. Fuel pump on, starter on, booster on, oil pressure, engine hours, volts. That's not hooked up. That seems to not work. And booster on. Now we've got to prime the engine. Actually pay to turn the fuel pump on for a brief second. When it labours, I'll know the fuel bowl is full. About there. Right. Got 1,000 pumps of this little thing. Catch you up in a second. I almost need two hands, but we're going to wing it. So clutch in. I'm going to leave the fuel pump off for now. I'm going to pump it. Now we've got engine cranked, visual inspection, fuel in, battery hooked up, isolator on. Should be right. Fuel pump on. These are notoriously temperamental to start. And there we had it. I idled it down for 5 minutes and then shut it off. Whew, don't run it forever. It stinks the joint out pretty spectacularly. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlebeards. That's how you start a Stuart tank. We're just now listening to all the, the toonk, 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 toonk stuff. With everything cooling down. It was nice paint. It was so pretty. I actually couldn't believe that started as easily as it did. This thing is temperamental. Well, it's not temperamental, but every time I've started it started differently. Or it's been a pain. And that time it was actually did it fairly well. So I'll see you on the next one, chaps.